So Armin and Ario and I are going to talk about how to find great builders and all kinds of other things today. So we're going to record this session. But before we started recording, I was moaning about how difficult it is to adjust to the time difference when you come from Australia to Canada. The other way is pretty easy, but this way not so much. So I'm still suffering a little bit.
Yeah.
So I really like the agenda that you guys set up for today. And I just wanted to do something simple first, if it's okay with you, which is
Sure.
I wanted to draw for you something that for people like you who are interested in commercial construction or multi-residential buildings, and I consider multi-res commercial in a way, right?
Okay.
I mean, if you're buying a townhouse and adding a lower level apartment, that's pretty simple stuff. But if you're building, a 15 unit apartment building or a 30 unit apartment building, or a retail plaza. I mean, those are really almost certainly the plaza is considered commercial construction, but I would consider the multi-res in that same category. So one of the things I wanted to do, and I'll just do one simple drawing for you that will show you how we organize ourselves to do this. So let me share my screen with you. So we do some pretty simple stuff, and I'll just draw it for you. See if I can get this out of the way. Yeah, I'll just draw it for you. And I'll pick an orange color. So, oops, that's not what I wanted. Let's see. So this is just a long table. And we're going to just put some chairs. Let's see if I can find something that looks like a chair. Not really. I'll just put these things. I'm going to just put some, I should change the color. I'm going to put some chairs on this side of the table. All right. These are we're just in a conference room. You imagine we're in a conference room and there's a bunch of people on this side of the table here. And let's just label them. So this is you guys, you're the owner, right? The owners. You said obviously on this side of the table. And then next to you will be your architect. Right? You typically have an architect of some sort. Then you'll have a bunch of engineers who are working. This is obviously for any kind of major development project. Again, if you were just buying a house and putting a basement apartment in, this is overkill, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you got your engineers, they're consulting engineers there. Then, of course, you've got your general contractor. Your GC is sitting there. And now this is where it gets a little bit interesting. Then you have your development manager. And I think we've talked about the role of a development manager before, right?
I don't think so. I'm not sure, but I doubt it. No.
Okay, well, we'll talk
I
about
don't think so. No.
Okay, I'm glad you told me that. We'll come back to that. A development manager is not a project manager, okay? And so I'll explain the difference in a second. Did I spell it right? Yeah. Project manager. And then who else do we have here? Oh, well, we probably would need a planner. Oh, of course, you need a coach. I added myself. All right. So I think I got them all. Let me just count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Should be 8 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes. And I'll just save this in your file. So you see, when I save files, I try and give them, decent names so I can actually find them again,
Okay.
right? Like a lot of people will save that as, photo 10.
Yeah.
And by the time you have a half a million photos on your computer, you can't find anything, right?
Yeah.
All right. So you'll see where I'm going in a minute. Now, who's sitting on the other side of the table? We'll just give them a little bit of a different color, I guess.
Um,
Who do you think these guys are?
maybe financing or maybe the contractors in
That's a
particular.
that's a great point. So these would be trades, all
I was
right?
gonna say maybe the government.
What's that?
I was gonna say maybe the government.
Yeah, oh, they're always involved in something, right? And then over here, we'd have a bunch of, do you know what these guys are? These are sub-trades. All right, and you'll see where I'm coming from in a minute. All right, sub-trades. And I think you're right. We should probably put in some other guys down here. People you need financing, that could be mortgage brokers. Good to have property managers. Governments, I guess. I think that's probably, and there's probably a billion other people. But in terms of organizing, I'll just make sure I'm saving it in the right file. In terms of organizing your cells, here's where I'm at, okay?
Mhm.
I put all of these guys, all of these guys, I'll go back to red, are on a fixed price
Okay.
contract, okay?
Mhm.
Because I hate when architects or anybody else, I'll just put this up here and I'll just put an arrow down. So obviously, I mean, the owner is is there. So all of these, I hate when an architect, for example, will give you a proposal that says between the architect and the engineers are going to take 4 or 5 or 6% of the project. Well, that gives them an incentive in a way to make sure that it's more costly, right? If the
Yeah.
project costs $10 million, 5% is obviously $500,000 in fees for all these professionals. And if it costs $20 million, it's double. Well, that's a terrible incentive. So what I tend to do is I tend to negotiate with an architect, and you can get quotes from architects. That's fine. You can get quotes, and from your engineers. And from different general contractors, different development managers, different project managers, different planners, different coaches. You can get quotes, right? So these guys can give you quotes, get some quotes here. But, at the end of the day, you like one architect, maybe he or she, they're a little bit more expensive than the other architect, but they bring more value. You decide to hire architecture firm XYZ, and you pay them a certain amount of money. Maybe you're paying them $10,000 or $80,000 to do their drawings, okay, and their work. That's their contract. You know how much you're going to pay them, and you know when you're going to pay them, right? Those are the two key things that you need in each contract, as well as, of course, the deliveries. So I call this sitting on the same side of the table, because once you have these contracts, even including the general contractor, once you have these contracts in place, Armin and Ario, they sit on the same side of the table. They become your advisors,
Mhm.
as opposed to sitting on the other side of the table. What I put on the other side of the table are the trades and the sub-trades. This is once you have working drawings, so you need working drawings. I'll put it in brown. And the working drawings come from the architecture firm, right? You understand that?
Yep.
So once you have working drawings, it can't just be a sketch. You won't get a price that makes any sense. Once you have working drawings, that you invite the trades, Your general contractor will do that for you. Will invite the trades to bid. So this is where the bidding takes place. Before a trade can bid, many of these trades have sub-trades. Maybe they have iron workers that, welders, all kinds of subs that they need in order to deliver a steel building, for example. You with me on that?
Yeah.
So these guys here, I don't know what color I used now. What color did I use? I have no idea. It was pretty, I think it was maroon. So these guys have what's called shop drawings. Okay. And those, oh, rats, I was supposed to make that. Oh, tough. These guys produce, the sub-trades produce shop drawings. So for example, if you're doing a fire escape, right, the sub-trade will actually do a shop drawing, which is different. The architect will sort of sketch out what the massing looks like, but how you actually fabricate, a metal fire escape is quite different from just a sketch that an architect will produce.
Okay.
All right. So at the end of the day, this is how you might do it. So these guys are bidding based on bidding over here. So they'll say they'll get shop drawings from two fabricators of metal fabricators. They'll choose probably the lowest price. Then they'll put in whatever work they're doing, and then they'll submit that. And all of these people on this side of the table who are now working together as a team can evaluate those bids.
Okay.
All right. Now, there's a few other things that you're going to want to know. I'll go see if I can get it right this time. I call this sitting on the same side of the table. That's kind of the title I give it. I don't know why. It just makes sense to me. So yeah, there we go. All right. Now, there's some other things you asked about in your agenda. At the end of the project, or let's not say the end of the project, at the beginning of the project, when you go through this, your goal, your goal is to get, and I'm going to send you this drawing. I mean, it's a classic Firestone drawing. Your goal is to get GMP. Do you know what that stands for?
No.
Okay, a guaranteed So your goal is to get a guaranteed maximum price from your GC, your general contractor. Okay, that is what you're trying to do. So this process at the end of the day means that your general contractor can say, okay, this building is going to cost you $10 million, and here is our corporate guarantee. That makes financing, construction financing much, much better. Now, again, if you were buying a bungalow and adding a basement apartment, and you had a contractor that you liked and trusted, he or she, they might just work on time and materials. You trust them, they just go out and put your little, 2-bedroom apartment in the basement. It costs you $100,000.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm not sure I would go to all this work if I have some contractors. I tell them, listen, we're going to add 2 microsuites in the basement of a building we own. Just go and do it. Right. And they bill me their time. They have an hourly rate, not very high. Some of these guys who work for me, relatively inexpensive, $45 an hour. They work 30 or 40 hours a week. They come to me once a week. They get paid. Right. And they just put in these little projects for me, put in some bunkies and workshops and stuff like that. I don't go through this process. But if I'm doing a $10 million project, or even a $5 million project, or a $3 million project, I'll do that. And when we did the Canadian Tire Center, this is what we did.
Okay.
Right. I mean, that was a few $100 million, right? So anything I think from 2 or 3 million, or maybe even 1, 2, or 3 million to 10 million or 20 million, I'd probably do this. All right. It's just so that you don't want to, have things get away from you. All right, so your goal is to get a guaranteed maximum price, which will help you finance, right? Because
Yeah.
people say, well, because in construction, the biggest risk is cost overruns.
Yeah.
All right, now, to keep cost overruns down, 0 COs. This is one of the worst things that happens in our business is you're building your building, whatever it is, and your architect made a mistake, or you made a mistake, or you want to change, and you sign a change order. That's one way to delay the project and run into severe cost overruns. So you want to aim for as few, if possible, 0 change orders. All right.
Change order.
All right. Now, a couple other things that you're going to be looking to do. You're going to want to get copies. Need copies of all plans, shop drawings, so one of the things that most people don't do, guys, and I don't care if it's a big project or even a very small project, you want to have copies, digital copies of all your plans, and that includes the shop drawings and everything else that is produced. All right, and there's some guarantees, you know, like your roof hopefully will have a guarantee that's associated with your mechanical electrical systems will have some sort of guarantees. You need copies of that, and today I would only keep digital copies.
Okay.
And one of the things I'm really good at is my real job description is file clerk.
File clerk.
I really do a good job, I have to say. I'm going to give myself a pat. I keep better files than most of my clients do. So my clients, even their lawyers, their accountants, their engineers, they're all asking me, can you find a copy of this? Can you find a copy? Because they know I actually can find stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I want you guys to be really good at that. All right. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. A couple other things that you're going to do is you're going to establish, for any project you do, a contingency allowance. Do you know what that is?
I guess if there are some overruns, or COs as you'd like to call them.
Yeah.
We have some reserve funds
Yep.
to cover for that.
Exactly. So typically maybe 6 to 12% of your budget, whatever your budget is going to be for a contingency allowance. And that contingency allowance, you're going to spend it all. You're not trying to save that, because this is to ensure quality. So, you know, if you need to do something to improve the quality of the building, the durability of the building, the safety of the building, you have some budget, because things will happen. I mean, it's inevitable. This business that we're in is a difficult business, and we need that. But having said that, there are still incentives.
Oh, nice.
All right, typing is terrible. All right, so you're going to provide incentives for early delivery. If they can deliver the project early, that'll save you a ton of money. Or there's some cost savings, and maybe a disincentive if they're late. All right. So
Can I
those are,
ask you for more
course.
details with regards to the incentives and disincentive?
Yeah, let me give you an example. I'm gonna sit for a minute. Usually I stand, but 15 hours time difference is making me tired, and we're not halfway through yet, not even a quarter. So, I'll give you an example. When we did the Canadian Tire Center, we budgeted $240 million for the building. Today would be well over $1 billion to build that thing, but 25 years ago, it was $240 million. That included a contingency of probably about, probably about 6% or something like that. I don't really remember, probably about, 10 million bucks contingency. So probably the budget was 230 and there was a $10 million contingency.
Okay.
But we also put in there incentives for early delivery and any cost savings that didn't impact the quality of the building.
Okay.
There's always things that you can find as you build a building, that you can do things that say, hey, if we did this, we'll save $100,000. And you don't do it by lowering the quality of your building or making it unsafe, right? You just find ways to do it. So what we did with the cost savings as they were proposed, and there was about, I think, about $4 million in cost savings, is the owner kept 50% of that, and the other 50% we divided amongst all these people on the left-hand side here. Do you understand? So everybody, the engineers, the architects, the general contractor, everybody on the left-hand side here got some of those cost savings. So I think we saved $4 million because the building we delivered for $236 million. So we were $4 million under our budget. We did spend our contingency again for anything that came up that we couldn't control, but we did have ways to save money. I'll give you an example of something that it was PCL. I don't know if you know PCL.
I've heard of it. Is it a big firm or something?
It's I think it's either the largest or the second largest contractor in Canada.
Okay.
So they're very responsible, and they gave us a guaranteed maximum price, which helped us finance our building, right? Because we had a guarantee from a company that's quite credible, very credible.
Yeah.
So early in the process, as we were getting ready to start construction, PCL decided to divide the Canadian Tire Center into 4 equal quadrants like this. All right. So kind of a round building, 4 equal quadrants. And they had 4 tower cranes. So they erected 4 tower cranes, and they had a crew to do each quadrant. Right. Okay. So the crew was only responsible for 1 quadrant. So they raced against each other to build the damn thing. And it saved us they delivered the building. It was supposed to be 32 months. They delivered it in 26 months. Maybe it was 28 months. I think it was 28 months. So they saved 4 months. And if you think about construction financing, you guys probably already know that most construction financing is quite expensive. Today it's 10 or 11, 12%. Whether it's a multi-res building or commercial building, pretty much anything, construction financing is expensive. So, so you save, considerable amount of money when you finish early, because then you can refinance. One of your questions, Armin and Ario, was refinance. You can refinance, hopefully, certainly before the interest rates went crazy, you could take that 10 or 11 or 12% construction financing and replace it with a 3 or 4% mortgage. So that, whether it's 4 months or 6 months, that's quite a bit of money on $240 million bucks.
Yeah.
So that insight by PCL, and by the way, they use it on other arenas and stadiums that they build, where they divided it into basically 4 different projects, was fantastic.
And then for the incentives, so you said for this incentives, it's 50-50 for the left side of the table and the owner, and then for incentives, how would you compensate?
So that was for the incentives, right?
Oh, okay.
The disincentives, I am not really keen on that part. A lot of people put penalties in if they're late in delivering. So had PCL been late by, say, 4 months instead of early by 4 months, maybe we would have penalized PCL a certain amount of money every month they were late. But I didn't put that in that contract. And the reason I didn't was sometimes there are things that happen that you can't control. If you have a contractor that you like and trust, by putting in disincentives, in other words, penalties, you can make enemies.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I just don't feel comfortable. Well, that's me. There's lots of American companies, Americans are good businessmen and women. They're tougher than I am. So I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. It's just I haven't done it.
Yeah. Okay.
Just not my deal. All right. I want people to come to the table every day, on the job with goodwill. Let's get this thing done.
Yeah.
Now, think about this for a moment. By getting the building finished 4 months earlier, it got the Ottawa Senators hockey team. They were able to move from a 10,000 seat arena to a 20,000 seat arena at the beginning of a season instead of 4 months into the season.
Mhm.
So there was an extra 10,000 tickets sold for about 20 games. So an extra 10,000 tickets times, I think it was 21 games, extra games that we got, times say $100 a ticket. That's an increase in revenues of $21 million. Do
Wow.
you understand?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm very keen on incentives for, any cost savings and certainly early delivery, because the early delivery not only saves you money, but let's say you have a 25 unit apartment building and it's built 4 months early. If you say you had 25 units at $2,000 times 4 months, you make $200,000 by delivering it early.
Okay.
You get your rents earlier, right? You get into the building.
Yeah, but I'm just a little confused on the incentive for early delivery. How would you compensate the trades, let's say, for early delivery? Because they're the guys that are really working on the project. It's not mainly the guys on the left side as much, maybe.
That is a great point. And we did not do that. It was just too complicated. We set up incentives for people on the left side, but the people on the right side, they got the job, they got the work, and that's it.
Got it. Okay.
And you got to remember that commercial construction in Ottawa, if you build in Ottawa, is largely unionized. And so I'm not against unions, but they tend to be expensive and they tend to be very rule bound, right? They tend to do good work,
Yeah.
but they're expensive, and they're, when they say they're putting down their tools at a certain time every day, that's it. They don't stay 5 minutes longer. Not 5 minutes, maybe not even a minute. They're just rule bound and they're expensive, but they do good work. So they get the job, that's it.
Okay.
At least that's the way I've been organizing things. All right. So what I said to you in an email, and I'm just gonna grab this and put it in an email to you guys so you have it. Let's call it GC. All right, there you go. So I forgot where I was going.
Sorry, if you don't mind me jumping in real quick. Earlier we mentioned development management is not a project manager. So what's the exact difference between them?
Yeah, I actually did remember that part. But what I was going to say is the choice of builder, general contractor, home builder, whatever, is one of the most important choices you'll make. Probably the most important choices you make in any project is, who is your builder, general contractor? Who is your architect? I think all of the guys on the left side, who are your engineers, who's your development manager, who's your project manager, who's your planner, who's your coach, that can make a huge difference. I don't think I can really prioritize one over the other, but you want to make sure that you have good choices. And if you don't make a good choice in architect or general contractor, then you have to, you're going to have to fire them. I think the word is, or the phrase is, hire slow and fire fast. Unfortunately, there will be times when your planner's just not being responsive and not getting the work done, and you fire him or her. That's just the way it is. Now, I'm glad you reminded me about that, Ario. So, I wrote this thing here, and I'm surprised I haven't sent it to you yet, but maybe I didn't. In what I did was I wrote something called how to become a development manager and why this is crucial to new projects. All right. And I'll send it to you guys so you can read it for yourself. But just before we go through this, guys, Ariel, a development manager is like a product manager in tech. Do you know what a product manager is in tech?
They're managing, I guess, a product.
Yeah, they're managing a product, but here's what if I was involved in tech, that's the job that I would want to do. I wouldn't want to be a project manager. I'd want to be a product manager, and they're quite different. And so product manager is there. Say that, Ariel, you and your brother owned a tech company, and you hired me. You got this idea for a new tech product, whatever it might be, and you hire me as your product manager. So I'm there right at the beginning. It's the ideation stage, right? When we're just saying, okay, what does this product do? Who is it? Who are we making it for? What does our typical client or customer look like, right? How are we going to actually build this thing? So we're there at the product manager is there at the ideation stage. Then the product manager is responsible for pulling a team together to develop the product. And the development manager will hire a project manager, and the project manager will run the schedule. So even in a tech project, you're going to have a schedule. Maybe you have 30 developers working on it, coders, and the project manager sets up the schedule of how all the different pieces are, how long it's going to take. It's called critical path methodology. Do you guys know what that is?
Yeah, I
You've
know
done
that.
it, right? So that's critical path methodology was developed in World War II by the Americans because they had, I think, 300,000 people and thousands of firms working on developing the first nuclear bomb. And they had to have a way to schedule everything and find the critical path,
Yeah.
So we use that today for, frankly, better purposes, like, how to deliver a tech product on time, how to deliver a building on time. The project manager runs the schedule. The development manager is there at the ideation stage, pulling the team together. He or she, the development manager, has a bunch of people reporting to them, including the project manager. Then the product manager is responsible for developing a marketing strategy and a marketing team to put it into the marketplace. And then the product manager is responsible for making sure that it's delivered to the customers and clients. And then usually the product manager is involved at least in one or two upgrades of the product, downstream. Because every product that you do, I don't care whether it's a building or a tech product, usually version 2 or version 3 is better than version 1. Not always, by the way. Some tech people, the tech bros, they keep improving things and they make it worse and worse and worse. They add so many features you can't actually use it. So simple is best, in my opinion. So a development manager in real estate is doing a whole bunch of stuff. Well, and you can see it, here's my list. A development manager is a facilitator who assists with some or all of these tasks. Site acquisition and due diligence. I don't have to tell you guys how much due diligence there is before you buy a building or a property or a piece of land. Your product manager, your development manager is involved with zoning and any official plan changes that you need. Highest and best use, your development manager has to know that stuff. Has to know something about design, urban design, as well as building design. Has to help with the concept plan, kind of what is the massing thing going to look like. And then, of course, number 6, you raise that as well, Armin, in your agenda, how to structure the ownership, how to source financing for it, how to put the team together, everything from a realtor to all the engineers and architects. Number 8 is obviously something that I added, which you won't find pretty much anywhere else, animation ideas. I think those are very important these days. The development manager helps with the functional program. Do you know what a functional program is?
No.
Okay. So I'm just going to stop that for a moment, see if I can find one. Yeah, here's one. So these are very simple to do, and most developers don't do it, but I think you should do it. I do it for every single project that I'm involved with. I do some development management work, not too much because I'm getting a bit old to do it, but I'm doing one, for example, for a 5,400 square foot clinic for a veterinarian, right? So it's only a one-story building. It's very simple, but you know, it's still kind of complicated, whether it's 5,400 square feet or 54,000. So this is, a functional program is very, very simple. What are the uses? In this case, this was a large community facility. It had a gymnastics club in it, had a basketball club, floor hockey, had an obstacle course. It had some commercial space, restaurants, some stores like health food. It had some studios like yoga and dance. So on the left-hand side, you have the uses. And then you either have the area that they're going to take up in square feet or square meters, doesn't matter. And then you have a bunch of comments on it, right? Now, you might say, what the heck? This is so simple, you could just do it on a sheet of paper. Here's the deal, though, that when you do a functional program and you have all your uses on the left-hand side and the area they're going to take up, it gives you a total area of, for this case, in this community building, of 92,000 square feet. But that's a net, so that the net area is equal to 92,000 square feet. So, okay, that's interesting. And then you have circulation space. All right. And you'll see how important this is in a moment. So you have circulation space, yeah. And that can take up, if you are designing a multi-res building, you want to try and design a multi-res building that has a common area. Sometimes you call it circulation space and common area. You want to establish, you want to be anywhere from sort of 10% to 12%. So you want about 10 or 12% of your building to be common area, corridors, elevators, exit stairs, etc. You guys with me on that?
Yep.
That's an efficient building. But in a community building like this, it wouldn't surprise me if it's 30%. It's just a different animal. Okay, 30% is, if you built a multi-res with 30%, I'm going to shoot you. That would be terrible. I mean, that's 30% of non-revenue producing space. You got to heat it, you got to cool it, you got to clean it, maintain it, repair it, right? That would be bad. Would you like to see a multi-res building with 0%?
Yes, that would be nice.
Okay, I'll put 0% here, and we call this the quadrant. I'll show you that in a minute. And Ario, if I forget, you'll remind me. Okay, so let's assume that because it's a community building. I'll move this over. If you think about it, I bet you the Canadian Tire Center probably has close to 30% space. Maybe not that much. Maybe it's a little bit more efficient, but I don't remember. But anyway, what it means is that you've got 92,000 square feet of net area. It means that your building is going to be equal to this divided by 1 minus, let's say, 12%. All right, no, that didn't work out. Piece of crap. Equals this divided by 1 minus that. All right, so do you see where I'm going, guys?
Yeah.
So your gross area is quite different. And I'm going to send you the spreadsheet too, I think. It's just, typical kind of thing. All right. So the gross area. Now, let's say your land cost, I'm just making up numbers. Let's say for this building, you ended up with, say, 3.5 acres. That wouldn't be typical for a building this size. And let's say you paid, Rick, these days, I don't know, $400,000 an acre. It might be more. All right, so let's say your land cost is that, and your building cost, what do you think it would be per square foot to build?
250, 300, 250 maybe.
Yeah, I think probably for you guys it'd be 250, but for me it'd be at least 350. When it comes to construction, don't hire me to run the cost side. So now because you have to do it on gross area, we now know how much this building is going to cost, right? I guess we should make that dollars. Oops. All right, so maybe I'll go 600,000 just to make it a little bit more realistic. All right, and so that's our building cost, and let's say financing cost, let's say we have to pay 11%, and let's say it takes 2 years to build the thing. So it costs, yeah, say you have to finance 36 million bucks times 11% times 2 years, and then I'm going to multiply it by 0.5. Why am I adding that in there, guys?
Is that the cost contingency allowance?
No, think about it. You're paying 11% on $36.5 million that you borrowed, but you don't need the $36 million day one. You need $36 million over 2 years. So about 18 million is outstanding over 2 years, if you sort of see what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So hit that. So that's $4 million. Financing fees, I'm talking about private financing. If you could do it with an A bank, it'd be much less. Financing fees could be as much as 4%. You're going to hate this, but yes, could be that. So it's ridiculous, but that's expensive, all right? And then you're going to have development charges. You guys know what development charges are, right?
Yeah.
Okay. In Ottawa, there's something like, I could have it wrong, but I think there's something like $22 per square foot. It might even be higher than that. So you're going to have to pay, and unfortunately they don't base it on the net area, they base it on the gross area. So you're going to hate this. You got to pay the city 2.3 million. That's for nothing. It's just a tax. And then you've got your building permit, which is different. Permit. I think it's just worthwhile showing you a typical project. I mean, I've done hundreds of them and been involved in hundreds of them. So we'll say, I don't know, 1%, I don't know, something like that for your building permit. Building permits are not that expensive. It's the DCs that kill you. So that's building permit is there. And then we'll say professional fees for all the guys that you've hired, right? And again, I don't like it as a percent, but I'm going to make it a percent. We're going to say 6.5%, maybe. We can get by with that for all the studies and engineering you need to do. So maybe it's that. All right, so now we're going to total everything up. So we'll call that a subtotal. Sum it all up. Where's the sum? Okay, and then we'll put contingencies in here. You can see why people don't like construction anymore. We'll put in 8% for everything that goes wrong. I don't know, so grand total is these two numbers summed up. And what does that work out to per square foot, gentlemen?
$500.
Yep. Have you noticed how many projects, that includes everything, financing, land, everything, right? For grand total. So
Yeah.
have you noticed how many projects not just in Canada, but in the United States as well, are we're talking about 30 and 40-story towers that are getting canceled, 50, 60-story towers. A lot of these towers today are running $650 per square foot. I talked to an architect the other day from Toronto. He's got some that are costing $1,000 per square foot. These are all in numbers.
Wow.
So, for this particular architect, he's world famous, based in Toronto. He doesn't mind paying his clients don't mind paying $1,000 per square foot, because they're selling their condos for $2,000 or $2,500 per square foot. So if you want a 2,000 square foot condo in this building, you're going to pay $4 or $5 million.
Wow.
Right? So you don't care if it's $1,000 a square foot if you can get 2,000 or 2,500 as a selling price. However, you do care if interest rates go to 7 or 8% and sales fall to zero or close to zero, right?
Yeah.
But I just want you to get a sense of how difficult it is. Now, Ario, there was something you were going to remind me of. Oh yeah, the 0%, right?
Yeah.
This guy. All right. But before I forget, I go back to my go back to Ario and Armin, and I'll send you the functional program. All right, it's on its way. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing for a minute. All right, I'll go and find the quadrant. So I wish I could claim that this was my idea, but it is not. It's architectural technologist here in Ottawa who came up with this concept, and it's fantastic. And we're recording this, so if you ever need to go back to this stuff, you can, right? All right. Okay. And I call it a quadrant. I took 7 years of Latin. I'm old enough that they taught me Latin back in the day, and I went to a military school, and they taught us about 7 years of Latin. So quadrant just means 25. And the reason we call it quadrant is the first one we did like this was 25 units. All right, so when you hear me talk about the quadrant, again, you can't look it up. It's just a name I gave it.
Mm-hmm.
We only tend to go 3 stories because you don't need elevators. Right?
Okay.
I think when you go to 4 or more, you need elevators. Elevators have to be licensed. They have to be checked on a regular basis. And I'll be honest with you guys. If I were to start my career again, I would never have built anything but 3-story buildings. Maybe some 2-story buildings, or 3, but I would not have gone any higher. I built lots of them that are taller than that. And by the time you add up all the costs that we just went through, the cost, we can build the quadrants for the number that you were talking about, Armin, 250, not 350.
Yeah.
They're wood frame buildings. You pop them up. They're easy to build. You'll see it in a minute why. And they're relatively inexpensive compared to some of the other things that we're talking about. So this was the very first one built, and it's a little bit complicated to figure out why there's no internal corridors, but I'll show you how it works. I don't know if you can sort of see these, they look like kind of projections out of the building.
Yeah.
Really, all these are staircases. They look like they're part of the building, but they're actually considered to be external elements, like a fire escape. And this is all louvers. So it is actually open to the elements. Now, the louvers prevent rain and snow from getting into the building, but
Mhm.
um, here's how it works. You go in this door, you go up half a level, you're into these two apartments. You go up another level, you're into these two apartments. You go up another level there. There are no internal corridors here. Zero.
Oh, wow.
Zero. It's incredible. And you can see there are three of these projections. These are relatively inexpensive to build. We did these out of the metal fabricated as opposed to concrete. Relatively quick to once you've designed them, to fabricate them and install them. You need a welder. And it looks fine. And so it does something else. I understand for a minute. It does something else, guys, that is truly amazing.
Okay.
You know that most buildings, most towns and cities have something called setbacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
That if you own a building lot, doesn't matter whether it's commercial or residential, you have to be set back from you have to have a front yard, a side yard, and a rear yard. So you can't be too close to your neighbor. That's partly for fire separation, but also because cities think it looks nice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because these are considered external staircases, you can place them in the setback. So you can make your building bigger without buying a bigger lot.
Mm-hmm.
Do you notice how these things here come right to the sidewalk? You notice that?
Yeah.
So these elements here, these three elements that you see here, are actually in the setback. The creators of this concept is Patrick Rutherford and his former partner, Patrick England, who unfortunately has passed away. They're architectural technologists based in Ottawa, and they're sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. They're really good at what they do. Patrick continues on by himself after the passing of his partner, his business partner. This was the original sketch that we did, or they did, and I was working on. And you could, in fact, go 3.5 stories if you wanted to. You could put units in the lower level. You could put a basement in here too, and you could have some decent windows. So you could have 3.5 stories. I want to see. I think I'm just going to get out of this for a second because I wanted to see if I have the more modern one because we've done a few of them now. No, I don't have the more modern version, unfortunately, on available for you. But that was version 1. We've done now. I think we're on version 3, and they're getting even better and prettier and nicer. But if you were ever interested in building a 12 unit, 24 unit, 36 unit, I would do a 3-story quadrant in a second.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned 25. How does that design relate to the number 25?
Well, because the very first one we did was 25 units.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All right. But I mean, you could do a quadrant with 12 units. You could do a quadrant with 24, 25 units, 35 units. I don't think you do a quadrant with 100 units in it, but anything from 12 to 35 or 36 on 3-story quadrant would be very nice.
Okay. And then you mentioned elevators cost a lot. How, like, approximately the maintenance fee and the installation and the purchase of the elevator, how much would that be, you think?
So one of my clients built a 3-story apartment building, quite nice.
Mm-hmm.
And he put in from the parking lot underneath the building to
Yeah.
the ground floor, second floor, third floor, and fourth floor. I put fourth floor in quote marks. He put individual elevators in that served each unit individually. It was like one elevator to a unit. And the reason it had 4 floors, it went from the basement to where the parking lot was to the ground floor. So each of these condos was 3 stories, but it had a rooftop area where, you know, it was entertainment area or games area, and the elevator actually went up there as well. So it was, these were very expensive, mind you. So he spent about $150,000 on his elevator to install them each. So, you know, you're selling a condo, that's 150,000 is your cost. But the maintenance of it and the licensing of it, obviously the owner has to, you know, the owner of the condo has to pay that. But in a rental, I would never do that. That's for rich dudes, right? And it has to my mind, it has to be a sale. You could never rent them. I mean, you probably have to rent the damn things for $7,000 to $10,000 a month to maybe not even to get a 6% cap rate. So when he came to see me with the units, I said, well, these are obviously for sale, and he agreed.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there a way to maybe lease elevators or something? So like you
I'll
don't
bet you
have
there
to
is.
worry about it.
I'll bet you there is. I mean, you can finance just about anything. You can finance tiny homes, RVs, caravans, trucks, buses, you know, rental equipment. You know, think about all the different rental equipment you could buy. So I bet you could lease elevators, but I'm not sure that if you're selling, I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me, Ario. I like that idea. If you're selling the damn thing anyway, you just pass the lease costs on to the buyer.
Yeah. Wow.
That's clever. I bet you could do it. I bet you there's you know you can rent a you can lease a roller coaster.
Okay.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
I work with some park operators. I worked with Canada's Paramount Canada's Wonderland back in the day, and I did a little bit work with Disney as well, and a couple of others. And there are wonderful roller coasters made by German engineering firms, and they will actually lease them to you. So I think you could probably go to some of the big elevator companies like Otis, and I bet you, I mean, that was a good question. I bet you that you could do that. I had never thought of it, but I think it's a hell of an idea.
Mm. Wow. So just to, I
Just give me a
guess,
second, I gotta blow my nose.
no worries.
You spend 30 hours in a plane, Armin, you come back with every kind of disease you can imagine.
So I guess to wrap up a little bit of it, so GCs are general contractors, they build it and they manage the trades, and then DMs are the development managers who manage the project from start to finish. That's financing, acquisition, number crunching, management of GCs.
That's a strong point you just made, because one of the things a development manager should be able to do is also do the kinds of spreadsheets, not just the one that we worked on, which was the functional program, the cost side, but the revenue side.
Revenue side as well. Okay.
Yeah, I missed that, and I didn't deal with that, but that's something the development manager should know, because you're going to reach a point on every project you do, which is go, no go. And you can't make a decision. So again, thinking about my architect friend who's building stuff all over the world now at $1,000 or even more per square foot, don't care as long as you can sell it for 2,000 or more. Yeah. I get that. But if you're building something for $500 a square foot and it delivers a cap rate of 5 or 6% today, that's not good enough. You've got to know that. So at that point, your development manager would sit down with you two guys, and you could be your own development manager.
Yeah.
So you know, you'll know how to do these spreadsheets yourselves, and you're going to say, look, we're spending $500 a square foot to build this apartment building, and it produces a 5.5% cap rate. That's not good enough. Can we do something to animate it, to add value so that we can get it hopefully to 8%. It's hard to get to 8% on new construction, but that's the target.
And then so project managers, they're the ones that order material and supplies for the GC, or does the GC do that, or what is the role of the PM here?
So the project manager really basically runs the schedule.
Okay.
And so the GC, the trades and the sub-trades, let's take, for example, that quadrant where you need the the external element, the stairs.
Yeah.
And that's being fabricated by a sub-trade, in a foundry, metal factory. And they're welding it together. The project manager definitely will keep track of the schedule, not just at the trades level, but at the sub-trade level as well.
Okay.
So he will call the sub-trade and say, look, we have you coming on site February 18th to install the first external element, the first stair.
Okay.
How are you doing on this? Are you going to be ready? Are you going to be there on the 18th? And then the project manager will follow up 3 days before, 2 days before, the day of. I mean, a project manager is a pain in the ass. That's what you pay the project manager to be. But he will track, or she will track everything down to the sub-trade level, because otherwise your project will be delayed. Your project manager should focus on that. Your architect and your general contractor are responsible for tracking costs.
Okay. Architect?
Yes. So what happens is at the end of each month, the general contractor, in the case where, because I'm doing some little projects, my contractors will come to me every week. Because these are little projects. They'll say, look, here's what we did, here's the materials we bought, here's the hours, here's some pictures of what we've done, and I'll just approve it, and they'll get paid, like I said, on the spot. These days it's all e-transfers or something like that, but they get paid. But on the larger project, your general contractor will come and will give you a sheet, and on that sheet will be everything that was done that month, and who did it, and all the invoices, and then the cost. But your architect has to sign off on that as well, because on these sheets that you get from your GC and your architect, once they are signed, they become legal agreements. And if they say, for example, are engaging in any fraud, because it's easy to defraud the owners in these projects, right? To say, well, we paid the subcontractor $200,000 when they really only paid $100,000, right? But once they sign these things, they become legal agreements between the owner and the general contractor and the architect. And if there's any monkey business going on, that's a criminal offense. That's fraud.
Yeah. And is the architect liable in this case as well if they sign off on something?
100%. And they all have, architects and engineers and general contractors all have errors and omissions insurance and liability insurance. But unfortunately, I don't think it includes fraud. That's a criminal matter. That's completely different. And hopefully you'll never have experienced that. I've had I've been at this for a long time, I guess 40 years now. And I've only ever had one contractor, who was a crook. Right. But out of hundreds and hundreds I've met, but there are people who will steal from you. It's very easy to do. They'll work with the trades and sub-trades to create phony invoices, and they'll say they paid it. Sometimes what happens is you pay the general contractor and he signs off that he's paid all the trades and sub-trades, but he doesn't. He just keeps the money.
Yeah.
And then you get, what a lien is, right?
Yeah.
So a construction lien Ario is where a contractor, a general contractor, a subcontractor, a trade can lien your project. That's like a nuclear explosion. If you have a lien on one of your properties, it's very, very, very difficult to get any financing or refinancing, get a mortgage in place, can't sell the building. You're really in trouble. It's like a nuclear event.
So if we talked about the development a little bit. Can we talk about acquisition and how we should structure the deal with the owners?
Sure.
Because as you know, like we're trying to partner up with the owners, either purchase it or just partner up, but ideally we partner up so that we can go to the bank and say, look, we have the cash in the bank to develop, but we'd like to use a little bit of your financing. And then we kind of own the land as well, which will make the construction financing a little bit easier.
100%. Yeah.
How would you recommend we structure the deal so that the seller is happy as well?
I gave that quite a bit of thought, and I've done this before, so I want to send you the development manager thing before I forget. All right, so it should be on your email. It's not like a typical Firestone handbook. It's short, right? So it's not 100 pages. It's maybe 5 or 6 or 7. All right, so it's not too bad.
Perfect.
Let's do another drawing. All right, make sure that's saved. Do another drawing. All right, hang on. Okay, so I did a little drawing myself, but we're gonna do it again. All right, oops. All right. So we have here Armin and Ario. Okay. And over here, we have the landowner. All right. And down here, we have a project. Okay.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter what it is. All right. So I'm just gonna, to make it easy, I'm gonna make up some numbers here. So let's say the land is valued at 1.5 million. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And we're going to ask the landowner to put that into our project. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to go, Mr. Landowner, you've got a nice piece of property. We want you to put this into the project. I better save this.
And by project, you mean like a corporation or like?
Could be a corporation. Hang on a second. Ownership. Sure. Okay, so yes, and it could be held. Project, oops. Held in a corporation. All right.
Mhm.
So whatever the project is, maybe it's a quadrant, all right?
Mhm.
And you're going to build a quadrant on this gentleman's property. It's worth $1.5 million. So let's go back in here. All right, and go back here, and now I'm going to show you. Save this. I'm going to version this. I'm going to save it again. Save as 100% Armin. So I'm versioning it. So I'm going to say, wait a sec. Armin and Ario are going to own this thing, this project, 100%.
Mhm.
And what the landowner is going to do, go back to maroon here, is he is going to get for his land, he's going to get I'll put it down here. He's going to get $100,000. I'm just making up the, I'll make it 150,000. $150,000 in cash, plus a promissory note from the project corporation. for 5 years. 0 interest. So this would be the simplest possible, structure. Let's say I'm an owner, and today, Armin and Ario, there are many, many, many owners who want to sell their land for $1.5 million, but their appraiser says, look, land values are down, real estate's in a recession, which is true everywhere in the United States and Canada, except for Florida, Texas, Alberta, and BC. Those 4 provinces and states are still holding their own. Pretty much everywhere else is real estate recession. Right? If you were the landowner, Ario, I would say, I know you think it's worth $1.5 million. 2 years ago, we could have sold it for $1.5 million. Today, it's going to be $1 million. You say, to heck with that, Bruce. I want $1.5 million. Ah, well, I've got this guy, his name's Armin, who will pay you $1.5 million. You're going to put it into the project. You're going to get $150,000 in cash, and he's going to pay you the rest within 5 years. So you get your price, but it'll take you time. And it might not be 5 years, it might be 3 years, right?
Yeah.
It might not be 0 interest, it might be interest. But this is the simplest way to do something like this. You with me on that?
Yeah.
All right, so that's one. All right, so I'm gonna grab this. And we'll look at some other scenarios. I'll send this to you. Oops. I'll call it ownership 1. There it is. Okay, so that's on its way. So let's go back here. Oops, here. And we'll go back to the earlier version. All right, and we'll save this as so you went to the owner of the land, and he said, to hell with you guys, that's a terrible deal for me. No. All right. So what would we do next? Well, we might say, all right, that we'll go back here and we'll say this guy is going to get he's still going to get 150,000 in cash. All right. But he's also going to get 30% of the project equity, right?
Okay.
And he's going to get a promissory note note for some additional cash. All right. So what I'm saying here is some owners will say, well, I want a little bit of cash now. I want to own some of the project, and I would like a promise to get more value for my land at some point during this project, whether it's 3 years from now or 5 years from now. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And so in this case, you guys are going to end up with 70% of the deal. Wonderful. But what I would make sure is that you would have all the common shares. You know what the difference is between common shares and pref shares, right?
I'm sorry, what was the other one? Prep shares?
Pref shares, yeah.
Oh, preferable shares. Okay.
Preferable shares, preference shares.
Preference shares. Okay.
Yeah, I'll show you the difference in a minute.
I think common shares has a priority over.
Not quite. No. Common shares have the votes.
Debt, I think
No, they have the vote. They vote.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are called preferred shares, I guess is a better way of referring to it. All right, so these are non-voting, because the last thing you want is you want somebody having a vote in this thing. You guys want to run these projects. You don't want to have to ask anybody else.
Yeah.
These are voting shares, right? And oops, okay, that'll have to do. All right, hang on. Now I'll just search my computer. I've got some stuff I should show you on pref shares. So if you ever get to the point where you want to do a deal with somebody like this, what we're going to do is we'll work on it together, guys. We're going to do a deal points memo. You remember what those things look like, right?
Mhm.
And so if you have somebody who says, look, I'd like $1.5 million for my land. I was told 2 years ago it's worth that. Today I'm told it's worth $1 million. Then Armin and Ario can say, look, we'll give you the $1.5 million, but you got to play ball with us.
Yeah.
You only get $150,000 in cash. You put your land in. You're going to get some preferred shares in this company, and you're going to get some additional amount of money so that the total will be $1.5 million.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to show you this. All right. So believe it or not, from the point of view of a landowner, he or she, they are better off with preferred shares than common shares. I'll explain why. First of all, if I was the landowner, and I'm 72 years of age, I would want you guys to do all the work. I don't want votes in this project. I just want to get $1.5 million for my land.
Yeah.
That's really my objective here over the next 5 years. I'll be 77 by the time you guys finish this project. This is an imaginary project. And I'll have my $1.5 million and I can ride off into the sunset, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really not, I mean, if the landowner says, oh, I got to vote, you don't want to do a deal with that guy because he's going to interfere every time you turn around. In addition to that, you know, if he wants common shares and he wants a vote, he may end up being required to sign on for the financing. Maybe it's a $30 million financing or a $15 million financing. He wants you guys on the hook for that, not the landowner. You with me on that?
Yeah.
So there are a lot of reasons why, if you explain it properly, if you're going to have an ownership in this company, right, then you do not want to have a voting interest, right? You don't want to sign for any debt. You don't really want people calling you at 2 o'clock in the morning with a problem. That goes to the young guys, Armin and Ario, not to an older fellow, man or woman who owns this property. But there's some other reasons why pref shares are exactly what they sound like, preferred. They outrank common shares. So you guys will have all the votes, but if something goes wrong and the project is wound up or sold, debt gets settled first, and after the debt gets settled, then the preferred shareholders get their money back, and you guys are the last to get your money back.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you're taking responsibility for the project, so make sure it doesn't fail. There's another thing on here called dividend protection. It means, let's say your company does well and you declare a dividend. You guys know what a dividend is, right?
Yeah.
Money for the shareholders. So you can declare a dividend for a preferred shareholder without declaring one for yourself. But you can't declare one for yourself without declaring one for the preferred shareholder. Because otherwise, because you have all the votes, you could say, oh, look, Ario, we made $200,000 this year. Let's do a dividend just for us, and to hell with the preferred shareholder. So they have dividend protection. So if you declare a dividend for 200,000, they get their share. If there's an offer, a buyout offer, they have what are called tag-along provisions, which means, let's say I really like the project and I want to buy it from you guys. I'll say, well, look, I'll just buy your 70%.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I have to make an offer. The same offer for your 70% also goes to the 30%, right?
Okay.
All right. So there are a number of reasons. I won't go through the whole thing, but I wrote this thing too: preferred shares versus common shares.
Yeah.
Guess what I'm going to do? I got to send it to you right now.
The only issue I might see with this is that if the bank comes in and says, okay, give us the corporate profile, and then they see that those guys are part
100%.
shareholder, and then they would want to qualify them for financing as well, and they
Exactly.
don't qualify for financing, and they just own the lot just because they inherited it or they've kept it for whatever 30 years, but they don't, they just can't qualify with regards to financing. How can we make sure that the project also qualifies for financing as well as, I guess, keeping them happy and keeping them as owners so
Yep.
that they get first priority on
So
the lot?
I just did a project. That was an excellent question. I just did a project, Armin, where instead of getting preferred shares, what they got was an interest in the corporation held in trust by Armin and Ario. That way it doesn't show up anywhere.
Okay.
So you can have a very simple trust agreement. Your attorney can, it takes 5 minutes. Well, it takes 45 minutes to draw it up. You can have a trust agreement. Gee, I can't spell corporation with a bean. You can have let's say I was the guy who was putting my land in.
Yeah.
I get $150,000 in cash. I get a promissory note from the company for say $750,000. And I get 30% interest in the project. But instead of taking shares, you simply hold a 30% interest in the project in trust for me. It's a trust agreement.
Okay.
Doesn't show up on title, doesn't show up anywhere. The only people who show up in the corporation and the only people who show up on title are you guys.
Okay. Great. Okay.
It's very simple.
How could we convince the owners to take less than, let's say, 30% of the project? And I don't mean it in a bad way. And the reason why is because if we're putting up, let's say, $5 million to build something, and they're trying to sell their lot for $1.5 million, and if the entire project, the cost to construct is $6 million, so what is it, 1.5 divided by 6?
Yeah,
They
well, let's actually work on a spreadsheet together that we'll just actually work it out.
Sure.
Because that's worthwhile doing. Just give me a sec here.
Before we do that, I just had one question that's been stuck in my mind for the past like hour or so.
Okay.
For the bidding process, how do you do that? Where do you do that? Do you reach out to I don't know, do you have a list of all the GCs that you reach out to and you say, here's the project, here are the drawings,
Yeah, it
give us
depends
your...
on what the project is, and I think that's a really good question. And I did have something that I worked on some time ago. So when you're looking for a renovator or a contractor, quite often what people do is they piggyback on other people's due diligence. You ask me, you ask your lawyer, you ask your accountant, you ask your friends, you ask other people in the industry, who are they using? And it depends what you're doing. If it's like I said, if it's a basement apartment, that's one kind of due diligence. If it's a $6 million project, it's a level above.
Yeah.
Like I'm close friends with Tim Streak. He's a local contractor, and he does projects that are $2 to $10 million all the live long day, and he's very good. He's a former military officer. He's one of the best small contractors around. But you would ask me, and we would ask a bunch of other people, and you interview them. But you have to have a project first, right? Because if it's residential construction, say a 3-story quadrant, Tim Streak would be a really good person to meet and do it. If you didn't like him, there's lots of other people out there, but he's honest and he really knows the business. I mean, he's really good and he delivers on time and on budget. So it depends what you're doing. All right. So once you have a project in mind, we've done a deal points memo with, we got it accepted, you know, with lots of conditions in it. We'll go searching for a contractor together.
Yeah.
All right. So you piggyback on other people's due diligence. If it's a renovation project, you know, you often just drive around the neighborhood. Let's say you're doing a renovation project in Hamilton, right?
Yeah.
You know, a little residential renovation. You drive around the neighborhood and you'll see signs. And I actually have done that. And you stop and you ask who the owner is. Maybe the owner's on site, and you say, "Who are you using? What are they like?"
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll tell you they're horrible, and you say, "Thanks very much." But sometimes these guys are fantastic. So you look for signs, and then you talk to the people who are actually hiring them. You check them online. I don't have to tell you, look at their Google reviews. Um, uh, you also can have your lawyer check for litigation. That's very important. If a contractor has a whole long docket of litigation, that's probably somebody you want to avoid. And your lawyer can just look them up. It doesn't, it's, you know, it's a $175, you know, lookup. Obviously you talk to your contractors, past and present clients, right? That's important. And then there's lots of local organizations. You know, I don't know if you know Ario in Ottawa.
Yeah.
You know, if you went to Oreo to a meeting there and you stood up and say, "Look, I've got a you know, $6 million multi-res. Does anybody know a good contractor?" You probably get 8 or 10 answers.
Yeah.
All right. So it's not that difficult to do, but it does require you know, homework. And the number one thing is you have to trust them and you have to like them. Right?
Yeah.
You have to trust them, otherwise you're in trouble. All right, so let's go back here and we're going to do a spreadsheet. January 29th. And what are we going to do again? Oh yeah, project ownership.
Project ownership. Yeah. Structure.
Right. Exactly. And everyone will be different. You know, so this is, you know, all the stuff that we've done today is theoretical. As soon as we find one that you like and we get a deal points in place, we'll do it all over again because it'll be different. Let me save it in your file. I've been running in about 3 or 4, maybe 5 hours sleep a night since I got back. No, that's not enough for me. I don't know how much, Ario, how many hours a night do you get?
I try to do 8 at least, but
Oh, wow. What about you, Armin?
I do usually 6, 7.
Yeah, I'm okay with 6 or 7. The 7 is probably better for me, but it's just, oh man, it's hard. All right, let's do this. Oops, 2, 2. Okay, so let's see what we can do here. Okay, so we've got the land, and we think the land's worth $1.5 million, right?
Yeah, that's approximately how much usually they ask for.
Yeah, something like that. And then the building, all in, we're not going to do what we just did. All in is what, 6 million?
I'm looking at one in downtown Ottawa. It's 5 million, I think.
Yeah, I think you said 5 million.
Yeah.
Okay. And are we assuming that there's no mortgage on the land?
Yeah, that's our assumption, just because they're retired.
Yeah, no mortgage. Okay. All right. All right. So now, so our project in the simplest possible way, total cost is this. Okay.
Mhm.
How much money are you going to be putting in?
$1 million. That's because that's all we have, so I don't I don't.
Yeah. So we're gonna, don't put in your last dollar. We're gonna put in 750
Okay,
because everything that can go wrong in this business does.
we'll go.
Right. Okay. And do you know the first name of this person?
His name was Brent, I think.
Okay. Just call him Brent. All right. So let's say How much do you want Brent to own of this project? 0%, 30%, 10%?
25%, which is the equivalent to the 1.5 million over the 6.5 total cost.
So I guess we're trying to figure out how much percentage we should give them.
Well, let's go with the number that Armin just gave us. So let's say Brent, the landowner, is going to put in 750. So the total equity is $1 million. So guess what? Armin and Ario own 75%.
Yeah.
This is pretty simple stuff, but it does get actually a little bit more complicated. In a minute. Oops. Shoot.
Just escape. Press escape.
Just getting rid of it. I'm hopeless. Equals this divided by that. Total is this. Okay. So Brent is going to put his land in worth, that's the fair market value, we assume. And he's going to get 25%, and it's going to be pref shares or held in trust, probably held in trust, right, Armin?
Ideally, yeah.
Yeah. And then these are common shares. All right. So you would issue some shares to yourself from this corporation, and you'd issue some pref shares to yourself. But those pref shares that you're holding, there'd actually be a trust agreement, which you're holding it for Brent.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. So now Brent is owed for his land this minus that, right? So $250,000 of his $1.5 million is going in as equity, and that gets him the shares or shares held in trust. $1.25 million is the balance owing.
Just confused on how did you arrive at the $250,000 equity? Is he putting in cash, or is he?
No, $250,000 of the land that he's putting in is considered equity.
Okay.
Okay. Now, watch this. If he's willing to take a promissory note, guess what? It does not show up on title.
Okay.
As a mortgage.
Yeah.
So now your corporation looks as if it has equity of $1.5 million of land that's looks like it's completely free and clear.
Yeah.
On title, and $750,000 of your cash. So you have a really strong balance sheet.
Yeah.
Okay. So that would be, the ideal condition. The promissory note might be for 3 years, like I said, it might be for 5 years, might be 0 interest, it might be 5% interest, whatever you guys can negotiate. But this would be really, really strong. I'm going to call this case 1. All right, I'll just make it.
I just had an idea. Maybe we could give him a bigger piece of the pie if he's flexible with regards to the promissory note, and then a smaller piece of pie if he's more harder to work with regards to like the corporate structure.
100%. In entrepreneurship, it's very hard to learn this. When I was a young engineer, I did not understand why $1 a year from now is different from $1 today. I didn't get that. I thought they still, back then we had the dollar bill. Today it's a loonie, but back then I said, well, it looks the same. Well, no, there's a time cost of money, right? So everything is negotiable in our world of entrepreneurship. Pretty much everything. It takes a little bit of thinking. All right. So So he ended up here. All right, this is case one. All right. Now let's try case two, save as case two. We're just fooling around and trying to give you guys some different options. Okay, let's call it case two, and we'll give it a different color. All right. So do you want him to have more equity or less equity?
I don't, I mean,
Let's do less.
Okay. So, all
you
right.
know who the greedy one is between us two.
So let's say we change the 250 that he's going to get credit for to 150. It means the balance owing automatically changes to a bigger number, but his ownership drops. That's case two. Right?
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, any of these options are, from your point of view, are good options. And obviously, if you believe in the project, the more equity that you can retain, the better.
Yeah.
And I don't have to tell you that we could do another case going in the same direction that Ario's going in. We'll do case three. Where we could drop him down to next to nothing. Let's say he just puts in 50,000, right? Then we'll just change the color again. So if only $50,000 of his land is considered equity, then he drops down to like 6%. You're at 94%. But obviously the balance owing is that. But you know, under this structure, you know, you can sort of see where you're going, Ariel. You know, we use these structures a lot, especially for young entrepreneurs like you, right?
What do you think of having the seller own or have bearer shares on the piece of land?
Can you say that again?
What do you think of the bearer shares structure on the piece of land?
I'm not sure I understand that.
Oh,
What's a bearer share?
apparently it's a structure where the landowner is the landowner on paper, but legally it's owned by the corporation or whatever it is, like whoever is on title.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would really go with something like that, especially since I don't really understand it. You know, let's just think about something different, okay? This will be case four. Let's say you guys were only going to put in $350,000 of your own money.
Yeah.
Okay? And so you could, if you notice, Ariel, that it doesn't change your equity all that much. I'm just going to go back, Control Z. Okay, so when you put in $750,000 of your hard-earned money, you end up owning 94%. But let's say you own, let's go with half of that, 375. Okay, watch what happens when I hit the enter key to your common shares. Okay, right now it's at 94%. It drops down to 88%. So you might be happy with 88% ownership here. You know, you might be happy with that and putting in less of your own cash.
Yeah.
Call that case four.
But can we really get qualified with
Maybe not.
375,000?
Maybe not. So maybe not. You know, well, we'll just change that to 475.
Actually, maybe we will, just because the land is we have equity in the land.
Well, the land is going to show up as like 100% free and clear under this, as long as he doesn't want a mortgage. He's accepting a promissory note, which he should do because he's an owner in the company as well.
Yeah.
So this one here, Ario, I actually kind of like better. 90% you guys get. You put in a little bit less of your own cash. Case four, I think, is I'm going to say I'll put in. make it bigger so you can see it.
I guess the toughest part would be to convince the owner to take on the deal, regardless of which case we
Well,
take.
he does have a promissory note. He's getting his price. He gets ownership in the company. You might offer him some cash. If you're putting 475 into this. Let's keep going with this one. Let's say we take 475. Let's say 475, and let's assume in this one. Let's say we're going to get 100,000. We're going to give him $150,000 of that in cash, right? Then the balance owing would be minus that. So this might be one of the ways in which you could incentivize him, because I think most of these guys, now he's getting equity in the corporation, maybe held in trust. He's getting a promissory note for 1.3 million, and he's getting some cash.
Mhm.
That might be really attractive. All right, I'm going to send you these spreadsheets. Sorry about all the emails.
Okay.
But you can see, guys, once you've done this once or twice, it'll just become second nature. You understand that, right?
Do you have a directory of the people that you worked with before, or I guess some of them that you worked with before, like GCs, PMs, DMs, I don't know, for financing, CMHC loans, blah blah blah.
Yes, I do actually. I'm just trying to see if I've given you everything yet. One more email. I apologize. I just
No worries.
sure you get this stuff because I appreciate the time you spend with me, and I want to make sure it comes out well for you. So I'm sending you the pref shares thing if I can find it. Yeah. Okay. So I'll give you a name a very useful and important contact. And when you're ready, I'll introduce you to all these people.
Mhm.
There's a man by the name of Matt Slobodian.
Okay.
And Matt is he is the #1 originator of CMHC financing in Canada.
Wow.
He's the #1 guy. He's a mortgage broker, but he specializes in it, and he's absolutely brilliant. And he's in his 40s, I think. And he was based in Winnipeg for many years, but he recently moved to Ottawa. In fact, the realtors I work with helped find him a house. And, I thought he'd get a nice house for, $750,000. Oh, no. $2.5 million house or whatever it was, something like that. He's done very well, which is terrific. CMHC financing is really important. And today it's just about the only source of 4.5% to 5.5% money with 40 or even 50-year amortizations. Otherwise, you're going to be paying 7 or 8%. Construction financing will be ridiculously expensive. So when you have a project, while you're in that due diligence period, there's some contractors I think I should introduce you to, and certainly Matt Slobodian is the #1 guy in all of Canada for CMHC financing. It's way too complicated for me. I would never attempt to approach CMHC without an expert like Matt on my team. I'm going to do a CMHC refinancing for one of my buildings this year, and I would never do it on my own.
Okay.
And I think that the fees get paid by you, but you just roll that into your overall financing, you know. And I don't even know what Matt charges, but whatever it is, it might be a point. It's certainly worthwhile. You know, I mean, if you had to pay him a point on a $6 million financing or 5 million, it'd be $50,000, but you would save that, you know, in no time at all.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Matt.
All right, there were some other things I think on your list. Let me see if I've gone through it all. I went through your agenda and wrote some notes here. I think we talked about most of it. I think we got through it all. What a miracle. Was there anything else that oh yeah, we didn't talk about property management.
Oh yes. Yeah.
And I wanted to I'm just going to show you one thing on property management. And you know, if you are interested in property management, which I think you should be, because I think I told you it's a core competency in this business, right?
Yeah.
If you're interested in it, we should do one coaching session really focused on property management. It is a core competency.
Okay. Sounds good.
And I want you guys, but you have to set the agenda, not me, right? I got 2,500 coaching clients, a little bit more than that now.
Yeah.
And you know, it's very important that it's your agenda that drives these meetings, not mine, obviously. So, but I want to share with you, just while we have a few more minutes, a slide deck that, and we'll go through it again if we have time and you want to do it. We'll go through it in detail. But I wanted to tell you, all right, we'll start here. In my mind, property management, it is part art and part business, and it's often overlooked. People think property management is very basic. You know, you take a phone call from a tenant, the toilet isn't working, you call a plumber, get it fixed, and you collect the rents.
Yeah.
That's what people think property management is. But I just want to show you some of the revenue streams that come with property management when it's done properly. So one that you guys would know is in my opinion, you should set up your own property management company. Initially, it might just be the two of you, but you know, at some point, if you have 600 doors or 600 doors plus some commercial, you'll have quite a number of people working in that business. So you would charge yourself, even though you own the building, and even if you owned it 100%, you still should break out your property management as a separate, you know, profit and loss. And you would charge yourself 6 to 8% of your rents. So if you rent an apartment for $2,000 a month, or you rent a commercial space for $2,000 a month, you might pay your property management division $120 to $160 a month for that. That's just to manage it. Then you also, this is a big thing, you want to, let's say you lease an apartment to me for $2,000 a month, you pay your property management division half a month lease, half a month per year of lease term. So let's say you rented it to me for 2 years, you would pay yourself 1 month, $2,000 for that.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a 1 year lease, it would be $1,000. If it's a 5-year lease, it would be more. We try in property management to do 2-year leases, and talk about residential, and in commercial 5 or 10 years. Just so you're not having to, you know, if you have 600 units and you did 1-year leases, you have to do 600 leases a year. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then your property management division should be charging 15% on all rentals, repairs, maintenance, invoices, billed, paid. In other words, somebody has to, you know, manage the plumber if there's a plumbing problem. Somebody has to pay the gas bill. It costs money. You have a bookkeeper. So if you're doing some third-party work, or even if it's just for yourself, and you're spending $150 on a plumber, you add $22.50 admin fee to that. Okay. Believe it or not, if you are running short-term rentals, you're going to charge up to 25% of revenues, because short-term rentals are a hell of a lot of work. You can't do it for 6 or 8%. You guys follow me on that?
Yeah.
Medium-term rentals are a big thing now. I prefer medium-term rentals over short-term rentals. Medium-term rentals are typically 1 month to 6 months. And that is more expensive as well because it's more work, but not as much work as short-term rentals. So that might be 12 to 15%. One of the things that I do a lot in my rental business is we don't offer a month's free rent. A month's free rent could cost you $2,000. Believe it or not, we can give a prospective tenant a free Costco membership for $110. That's they value more than the $2,000 free 1 month free rent.
Wow.
It only costs you maybe $110 or $120.
Okay.
We also, in some of our units, we provide tech packages, and others we provide them internet and Netflix and Prime and a bunch of other stuff, and we make some money on that. If you have your realtor license as a property manager, that can really help, right? Because if you're selling something that you own or you're buying something, you can get half the commission for it.
Yeah.
I'm just going through the highlights here. Let's see what else they are. Obviously, there's lots of little animations that we've talked about. You can charge for parking. You can put backyard workshops in, backyard home offices in, backyard storage sheds. So all kinds of cool stuff that you can do to increase revenues. And because you're getting a percentage of those revenues, it also increases your property management division. You guys know about subletting and augmented tenancies. I think we talked about that.
Augmented tenancies, no subletting. We know about it a little bit. Oh.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm just gonna show that then if I haven't talked to you about it, because I just sent this off to a client of mine today. I could find it. All right. Yeah, let me show you something that I worked on actually this morning. This is a very important concept. It works both in commercial and in residential. I'm surprised that I didn't actually talk more about it to you already. This will be it for the day. So this is a client of mine in Toronto who is building a multi-unit building. And I just sent him this morning, okay? And it might be a little hard to see, but I'll do my best to explain it and also make sure you can see it. So here is he's got I don't know, remember how many units. It's probably about 50 or 60 units in this building. I think it's 3 stories and it's quite a big floor plate. And he has a 2-bedroom apartment. So you come in here, there's a washer and dryer, there's your kitchen. Come around here, there's your bathroom, there's a bedroom. You come out here, I guess there's a balcony there. Go in here, this is the 2nd bedroom. I guess this is the master bedroom. It's got a walk-in closet here, and it's got a bathroom here. But I changed it. I'll show you what I did. What I did was I suggested to him that he, obviously here's the door to the apartment, that he puts a second door to this is the hallway here. So you have a second door to the hallway. This is his bathroom. This becomes a micro kitchen. You get rid of that door so that this master bedroom becomes its own independent micro suite. Are you guys seeing that?
Yeah.
It's also called a lock-off suite. We have been building these in the United States and Canada for the last probably 7 or 8 years. And I want to show you how it works. And I would redesign this. I would do a better job on the design, but I just wanted to give him, his name's Jeff, and I wanted to give you guys an understanding. So if you're going to build some multi-res, you're going to include some of these. You'll sometimes hear me call it augmented tenancy.
Yeah.
Sometimes I call it lock-off suites, and sometimes I call it a gigaplex. Right? So those are terms you can't look up. Those are terms I just made up. Lock-off suite is an actual term. But here's how it works. If he does this, and by the way, the micro suite or the lock-off suite or the Gigaplex does not, the city or the town, cities or towns do not consider that as another unit. So you don't have to provide another parking space. So you don't have to pay another development charge. It's all part of a 2-bedroom unit. But here's how it works. You could rent, let's say you rented this 2-bedroom apartment to me for $2,000 a month, but you gave me permission to sublet the micro suite. I could put that on Airbnb, or I could rent it out medium-term rental, or I could run my business out of it. There's 101 things that you can do with it. In White Rock, BC, one of my clients built a building, it's 6 stories, and he gigaplexed all of the 2-bedroom units. So again, let's just go through the numbers. So Armin and Ario rent this to Prof. Bruce for $2,000 a month, but I have your permission to put this little micro suite on, say, Airbnb, and maybe I get $150 a night for it. And maybe I rent it out 20 nights a month. So I'm making $3,000 for my micro suite, but I'm paying you guys $2,000. I can live in my own nice apartment for a negative amount of money. You guys follow that?
Yeah.
But here's where it gets better. In the lease that you give me, you put in there that you get, for any revenues I get over here from my lock-off suite, you guys get 25% of that. It's called a percentage rent.
Okay.
That's a concept that I brought from commercial to the residential space. So without you guys having to lift a finger, you're getting, say, well, let's say 20% of the revenues I generate here. So if I generate $3,000 a month, you get an extra $600 a month for that. How much extra work are you doing for that?
Zero.
Zero.
Well, how do
And-
you manage that? How do you
What's
how
that?
do you make, how do you make sure that you're being paid what you're entitled to?
Well, if the unit's on Airbnb, that's pretty easy to follow. I mean, you can see all kinds of information, and we have done this in many parts of. I've got a guy in San Francisco who's got a 6-plex where he did this. I've got a guy in White Rock where he's got I think 40 or 50 units doing it. So you have the right to audit their books twice a year, and you can also do the secret shopper thing, where you could actually book it. You know, get one of your friends to book it, and if it doesn't show up in his month-end reports to you, you know that he's cheating. That is a very serious offense. That's fraud, right? You see percentage rents in a lot of commercial situations. You know, you rented a restaurant, the restaurant makes $3 million a year. You have a 4% percentage rent, you get an extra $120,000 a year.
Okay.
This is a wonderful way of helping people help themselves, but also helping the landlord, you, make a little bit more money.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Anything else before we break for the day?
No, very amazing, informative session as always.
I think it was really good. I want to hear from you guys, though. You know, I'm back now, and I don't want you to go away from us if I don't hear from you. Any questions, you email me, want a mid-month report. If you find a place that you really want to get going, we're going to do a deal points memo right away, okay?
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, we have
I'm
a
really
few.
glad to see both of you. This will be on YouTube at some point later today. Right
Okay.
now, your professor is going to have an app.
Okay. Sounds good.
I'm
Perfect.
Pete. I'll see you guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Have a good one. Bye.